my perspective has changed a lot in the last few years, where I've become more sympathetic to the, I don't know what you would label your, I don't even call it ideology, but just perspective of race consciousness sounds too, is that too much?
I mean, it's
the reality of race, maybe.
Ooh, then you get into race realism.
Okay, right. I know. There's no way to do that. I know. It's just the whole thing's so fucking fraught.
Race consciousness is probably the best term.
Okay.
I'm in a similar boat as you in that the terms, because of the way these conversations go and certain factions involved closest to your end of the table, every time a term comes,
there's some goofs on your end too.
Well, yeah, but we don't pervert the terminology. You know, so like woke and DEI. Like DEI is just N-word now. That's just the way.
Oh my God.
like
some of your takes are JJ McCullough level bad. Okay, saying although you would agree with it. You did when JJ said Dave Chappelle is right wing, and I'm like, please stop, please. You would agree though, wouldn't you, that Dave Chappelle's right wing?
No, I don't think that. Dave Chappelle is a transphobe, and transphobes can be very liberal. Dave Chappelle is really just the transphobe. I think Dave Chappelle's Dave Chappelle's pretty black conscious. He's very black conscious. He talks about shooting heroin addicted white people all the time. It's hilarious. That was a pretty funny joke. Buckshot.
Yep.
That's great. He's an all-time great. I wish he would get back to his roots. But we're getting off topic.
That's fair. Yeah. The point of.
But you were trying to, we were bringing up the fact that the terminology is always being perverted. You were trying to get to the fact that you're more sympathetic to race consciousness the
idea of treating everyone like an individual is, I do still think it's an aspirational goal, and like one that we still should be striving towards. Like in this conversation, I'm not treating you as an avatar of black people. Like I've seen your videos. I have some at least limited understanding of who you are as a person and all that. Mm-hmm. And I'm leaning much more into that than just some stereotype of a black person. And I would think you wouldn't be talking to me if it wasn't the other way.
I don't, as I said before, I don't talk to white people that I don't have some insight into more than once. You know what I'm saying?
So practically, yes, colorblindness is something that is a tool that we need to keep in our toolbox and move forward with. But it just is the case where it's the classic psychological rule is the more that you attack in a part of your identity, the more inclination you have to resonate with that identity. So the example I always give is like gay people. It's like gay people are told from birth, oh, if you're gay, you're a satanic degenerate, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, then when they get older, they're like, well, fuck it. We're going to get called satanic and degenerate all the time. So we'll lean into the aesthetic, like the Lil Nas and Sam Smith and all that. It's like, well, why are they doing this deeply anti-Christian shit? It's like, because it's a giant fuck you.
It's also really cool looking. Sam Smith and what's it called? I don't know. Sam Smith. Yeah, I think Sam Smith has like a lot of cool visuals, right? I feel like
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know.
Well, anyway.
But my point is
that may be my degenerate nature as well, as a not at all queer person, but who's always had appreciation for queer imagery. Got a whole Beyonce video dropping probably by the end of this conversation.
Nice. But the point is, the more a certain part of your identity is attacked, the greater inclination you have to sympathize with it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm like, especially if you're a minority, in a majority country. So for black people, there's a very practical element of it's just the nature of the demographics that there are less black people. So almost all the time, if you go into a room that's like a random distribution, you're going to be in the minority. And then not even just the identity is being attacked element, but if I'm in Dallas and I go into a bar and I see one other Bears fan, and this has happened, immediately we have a connection that, no one else in the room has, just by virtue of being a minority. But the attack on the identity is a big thing. And for me, FD, there's a lot of anti-white racism nowadays. And I got to be honest, I was talking to a friend who, I don't know if she was in Ohio or had a friend in Ohio or something like that. But basically someone, I think they were from India or something, said something to the effect of, you know, there's too many white people in Ohio. And I'm like, all right, look, nobody loves colorblindness more than I do. Nobody loves Coleman Hughes. Nobody loves, but I felt in me, like, you're saying there's too many white people in Ohio. How about you shut the fuck up? Okay.
Did you?
No, that's how I felt. That's how I felt.
But did you though?
Yeah, I felt, it felt like now, just because I'm angry, I'm like, well, I should go to India and then go, there's too many Indian people in Mumbai. It's like, of all the places where there should be a lot of white people, it's Ohio.
Maybe Ohio.
Okay.
Maybe.
And so, and then
if you're not in like Cincinnati or.
Yeah. And then that's just one, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back of just that, plus all of the bullshit DEI stuff. Mm-hmm. Be less white. Whiteness is the devil. Whiteness is evil. You know, all that shit. It's like, that shit piles on.
Does it?
Yeah, I'm telling you it does. On my psyche. I see it and I just go, dude, it's so tiring. Constantly.
So no, this is, well, I'm sorry. I'm cutting you off, but it's
no, but my broader point is, you may not like the reasons for it, but that is part of why I'm sympathetic. I'm more sympathetic to, like, damn, you know, if all of the people who are in the most neglected neighborhoods are all black, you could say, well, it's just poor is the problem, which again, on paper and in practice, I believe is true. Like, black people are disproportionately poor. So programs that are dedicated just to poor people will disproportionately benefit black people. But you can't strip the element of, like, there are people in the inner city in Chicago who have been impoverished since, you know, forever. And to just
Chicago started, well, you know, I can tell you the history as to when forever actually starts.
Sure. Well, there's many different aspects to it. But my broader point is, what do you think of, because this is definitely an emerging trend. I think the Shiloh Hendricks situation, which I know you haven't looked into much, but that was the white lady who called the black child the N-word. I did a video on it. I basically pointed out, this is a very malformed and, you know, disease-ridden psychological reaction to a real phenomenon, which is, like, you know,
this is
at a certain point.
As white, have you?
I have heard of black. I was gonna ask your opinion on this. Black fatigue. Again,
because, like I said before we got on, I've avoided online race discourse because, you know, I'm gonna get it back in there eventually.
It's particularly, right? It's a very healthy, normal.
It's not healthy at all. This is mostly just going in circles. Because, you know, because I don't think we're willing to name the thing. And so that's kind of why I want to drill down. Like, my curiosity lies in what does anti-white racism or anti-whiteness feel like from your standpoint? Like, yeah, what does it feel like? What are you afraid of? What is the pain point? Right. And let me say this, and I'm not doing this for the Impression Olympics. Because, like, I love the Impression Olympics. I refuse to do
I'm playing it now
on your channel right now, right? But if, like, so a perfect example, my son is plays soccer for a local inner city soccer team, right? And inner city in Atlanta means predominantly white now, like, believe it or not. So he is his soccer team in general is maybe 5 to 10% black kids, which means he'll be one of 2 to 3 black kids on his team if he's lucky. The other day, a white kid during tryouts did finger guns at him and said, pew, 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 I'm blacker than you. And my son, because he's my son, said, don't talk to me like that. You don't know me or else. And this thankfully didn't cause
based response,
right? And the reason why he had that response, because I taught him very early on that he's going to encounter that type of, like, activity whenever he enters into a white space, which, as you pointed out earlier, is going to be a lot of his life. A lot of his life, he's going to be entering into white spaces and encountering white people who, I don't think this boy, like, this is kind of, we talk about, like, racism. I've said in other videos that it's not about racism being evil. It's about it being, like, functional. So, like, I don't think this little boy was trying to be mean. I don't think he was trying to be racist, as it's often discussed. I think he just does not know how to talk to black people, because where would he learn that under the circumstances? He does not know what will come off offensive, because where would he learn that, right? But that encounter is an existential threat to my son, if I don't, one, address him and let him know how to engage with that, and two, depending on how it goes with this team, address a coach or an organizer and say, hey, there are boys on this team that are microaggressing against my son, making it a hostile environment for him, right? And so, like, some of these terms, hostile environment.
By the way, you want to the word microaggression is a microaggression towards me because it triggers me.
I do hate the term, but you know what I'm talking about. Again,
vaguely, yes, I get your,
There's a lot of reasons why the terms get cooked. I'm not an identity politics guy. I understand the value of identity politics, but I know that identity politics are very much cooked. So we, for not quite aligned reasons, I think agree on this, which is one of the reasons why it's good to talk about it. But I'm asking this because the point I'm trying to get at is other forms of racism carry very explicit, like material and existential threats to racial minorities in America. Not to say that you shouldn't feel a way when someone makes an anti-white joke or an anti-white comment in your presence, but I do want to dig into, like, what is the emotional and psychological response? What is that rooted in for not just you, but for what clearly is, at least online, a growing population of white people who do not think they're racist for this black fatigue thing. So, you know,
I mean, it's just, I don't know. If someone says there's too many white people in Ohio, it's like, what do you mean too many? Like, that's like, it's a bad thing.
So were they serious?
Like, being white is a bad thing. No, yeah. I mean, again, and to be clear, I'm hearing this secondhand.
Got you.
But yes, he said, or she said that whoever the guy said it was, like, unironically, there's too many white people in Ohio. So which I'm using that one example, but stuff like that.
No, stuff like that.
You see that online all the time.
There are no consequences for making jokes about white people. There are no consequences.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm not even
except for on Twitch if I say cracker. Right.
Yeah. Like, I want to do a white racial slur tier list. Racial slur tier list, by the way.
I think that would be funny. I will not be a part of it, but
that's fine.
Watch it in comment.
I'm going to clip that, you saying that at the beginning of the video. I will not be part of it. Anyway.
But why do you think that what do you think drove, here's where I'm getting at. What do you think drove that Indian woman to say that under the circumstances? Like, what was behind that? That
white people are generally bad, and therefore it'd be better if there was less of them. It's the same thing that causes white people to say black fatigue. It's white fatigue. White people, they're oppressive. They're ignorant. They're dumb. All this different, stuff. It'd be better if there were less of them. You're laughing at my trauma. You're laughing at my racial trauma.
Oh, so I think that's uncharitable, but maybe not inaccurate. I think a more accurate, charitable way to frame that is this is a racial minority in a highly polarized minority space for her that is like reasonably fearful or reasonably tired of how that racial minority status affects her day-to-day life. And thus, maybe in a moment of carelessness or callousness, made a comment reflecting that status.
Okay, hold on. So that is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I would point out what you're doing is you are default making the best case scenario for that, which is fair. Could be true. I don't know this person.
Right.
Would you acknowledge that it is just as likely that maybe she's rich, is completely, in all practical senses, certainly has a much higher status, all things considered, than like your average poor Ohio white person. Probably. Who's, and she just doesn't like white people. Like, do you acknowledge that there's a large number of people like that, minorities, non-whites, who have that attitude? So, and it's not rooted in any like, well, it's because they're justifiably have white fatigue.
So let's take justifiably out.
Okay.
I feel like that's loaded, right? And I don't know if I want to get into a justifiable bigotry conversation at all ever.
Sure.
But
because then we'd have to talk about Italians, and don't get me started on that.
I thought no, you're Irish.
I'm a mutt. I'm Irish. I'm not Italian. I'm Irish.
Yeah, you had a really good joke
Eastern...
about Italians.
Yeah, that's right.
In the document you're talking about.
Correct.
But so like, yes, I can admit that and recognize that there is a realm where, so bigotry, so like any halfway decent race identity politics scholar will often use the somewhat toothless cop-out that anybody can be bigoted, right?
Which is true.
Which is true. Well, it's the reason why that often gets that statement is often taken poorly is because it's used to deny the concept of anti-white racism, because racism is inherently structural, whereas bigotry is insert a number of things that people feel and believe about people who are different.
Sure. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So like, if you're asking me if she can be bigoted and that was rooted in bigotry, yes. And I don't approve of bigotry. You've never heard me make like really lazy cracker jokes in my videos.
I'd laugh if you did, for the record.
They're funny. They are funny, right? Racism, that was the joke. I think I made that joke in the video, is that to be white means that racism is always funny. And that's kind of the thing that I'm all right,
well, to counter your definition though, it's like I am certainly, and I'm articulating my perspective here. I'm semi trying to like also articulate the people who do go down more the like, no, well, whites got to stick together now. It's like that is forever a stupid position. Mm-hmm. But I believe in the way that you dismantle the calls for white unity is to, this has always been my point, rob them of their valid talking points, right? Like this, and this is why it's partly why I lean into like, of course, anti-white racism is real. And I don't qualify it. And if someone didn't know who I was, they'd be like, oh, is this guy like a white, is he a white supremacist or whatnot? And it's like, no, I'm unabashedly taking the true things that I've seen in my own life, I see everywhere, and robbing it from them, so then I can, in the same breath, just as confidently be like, yeah, and the calls for like white European solidarity, guys. It's like, have you seen the history of Europe? We killed the fuck out of each other. This isn't like the people who say coexistence is impossible or whatever, or like black fatigue. It's like the amount of, real quick, just on this example, the one that shows up always on Twitter is it's fights at the airport. It's like, there's a fight at the airport. Look who it is. It's black people. It's like, this is my go-to example all the time. It's like, I am a Southwest A-list preferred member. Okay, I've gone through the airport dozens and dozens of times, thousands upon thousands of people, thousands of them being black. Not once ever in any circumstance have I seen anything like that. And if I were to base my views off Twitter, be like, oh, you can't go to the airport in Dallas or whatever, right? It's like a
dangerous place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like not even once have I encountered that. And it's just like, and so all these nut jobs, existences or coexistence is impossible. It's like, it's insane. But in order to properly address them and properly rob them of whatever sentiment is pushing people towards their perspective, is to be like, yes, of course, the people who say, yeah, there's too many white people in Ohio, like that's fucking ridiculous. And right. It's just, it's a feelings thing, it's a vibes thing. And like to be told there's too many of people that look like me in Ohio, mm-hmm. Not that it would be better, like, anywhere else, but it's just like,
it's not, New York City.
Yeah, but I mean, even that's my point. Even then, it would be bad. But like Ohio, it's even worse.
Comedic. So yeah. So like in many ways, I think your overall framework and logic is reasonable. The thing I think we fight on, the thing that I think people who would judge me for my appearance here would question is the internal mechanism of why anti-white racism is a salient point within those spaces, right? And the challenge becomes, and I don't have a really good, I don't have like, I'm developing my analysis on this beyond just simple, the obvious, beyond simple. I'm trying to develop an analysis
beyond the simple critical race theory.
Beyond critical race theory analysis, right? Critical race theory analysis, and this is not to undermine the framework of how that is understood.
Yeah.
But I also know that just doesn't have any legs in actually engaging with white people, right?
Okay. So I'm going to put a pin in that. Well, continue your point.
So
I do want to put a pin in that though.
Because my question would be like to this person in this experience is what about their white? So like, could we create a standard where racial minorities in America were held to account for anti-white jokes and anti-white sentiment?
But even that, it's not about holding anyone to account.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about this person; they're irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I would like that sentiment to not be normalized. Now you could say the only way to do that is by holding people who do it to account. And I don't necessarily think that. I think it's like you can destroy memes. Memes can be destroyed simply by reducing the social value around it. And it's not necessarily through stigmatization, but it's like pronoun jokes. You know, like, what are you going to identify as an attack helicopter? It's like, even though that was very prescient, I would point out 10, 15 years ago, it's like, if someone makes that joke, it's like, it's like, that's the dumbest thing. You know, it's like, it's not like, well, we need to hold people who make those jokes to account. It's just like, it's not interesting.
So I think we agree on this then. It's kind of like, how do we, so there's a reason why, and that kind of, this is where I'm trying to like develop grounded theory with you right now.
Yeah.
There's going back to the example of my son. There's a reason why I've taught my son how to respond to, you know, microaggressions or whatever term we want to use, insensitive racial jokes in his environment. And it's because though in that situation, those jokes are precursors to actual material and existential harm. And in this woman's situation, that's not the case. Now, that doesn't make it okay per se, right? It doesn't make it it doesn't make it an optimal way to engage in racial discourse or trying to figure out and addressing racial problems in America. But the problem I often have with even entertaining anti-white racism is the very premise puts them on the same playing field. And even like adopting that premise, I've already seeded a ton of really important like ideological and just interpersonal talking points, let alone realities. Sure. And so not that like that's in and of itself is a problem. I kind of lost where I was going with the follow up there.
Well, because this is my question is like, because you and I are having this conversation, which is not, like you said, not necessarily not the norm. I'm certainly the furthest right person you've talked to, which is hilarious, by the way, because you should meet some right.
I talked to Sitch and Adam.
Yeah,
and understand, like I remember, I think I've told this story. I used to be like the type of guy to like argue with white supremacists online all the time. Like once upon a time. So like this is familiar territory.
That's fair. Well, white supremacists are not the best that the whites have to offer. Okay, the whites have plenty great to offer. All right,
no.
Bo Burnham, J-Reg, but that's sad that those were my first two. Not J-Reg. J-Reg that was good, but wait, hold on. But my point is, what is your goal with? I mean, this is just a broad question. Like, what is the goal with? What for you, because you're a very significant influencer, when it comes to discussing these issues, because like you said, you don't want to, if you're going to compare anti-white racism to anti-black racism, let's say, if you even use the same labels, you're putting them on the same playing field, which has its costs. Whether I disagree with them or not, like the costs are there. The question though is, looking at it from a more consequentialist perspective of like, what is the practical reality of us discussing it? It's like, do you want white people to become more white conscious or not? Like, would it be good if white people were more like, no, actually like white is right and all that shit? Because I would argue that's not great.
Right.
And part of whether, how do I say this? whether within the framework that you are operating in, your analysis of anti-white racism not being as real as anti-black racism is logically coherent, correct in different ways. From a pure, like, practical, the way that you discuss it, the way that, for example, a white person is going to interact with a far less tolerant white person than me, who's far more sensitive.
Yes.
Because you obviously have to know. There's plenty of people who come across you and just say, "Oh, this guy's a racist. This guy's a racist."
Section. Every time I venture into the moderately right wing,
yeah, they're like, "FD's a fucking racist" or whatever.
FD hates white people.
When the same and by the way, clearly vice versa. There'll be people from your further neck of the woods who say the same about me.
Right.
But we're both enlightened centrists.
But actually, no. That's the kind of the thing. I'm not an enlightened centrist. I saw you try to sneak that in.
No.
I am
a true enlightened centrist would deny their enlightened centrism. Just FYI.
I'm inclined to the utility of enlightened centrism for the communist utopia that I one day will see in my lifetime.
Listen, communists have some good ideas. Marx has some good ideas.
Marx has some good ideas. Look at that. We're halfway there. But no, like you said something that hit something I really wanted to speak on, and I lost it for the fucking joke.
I run in that problem often. Practical. Do you want to be right? Do you want to win? There are white people who will hear you and say this guy's racist and then be turned off. Right. So when you're considering how you're,
so, and this kind of ties back to the whole conversation. People in your comment section has evolved a little bit. It's gotten better.
And to be clear, my comment section is made up of Destiny fans, Andrew Wilson, Christian Nationalist fans. It's
weird.
I have the weirdest. I'm going to do a video psychoanalyzing my audience
I'm looking forward to that.
It's complicated. Yeah.
So your Christian Nationalist sympathizer fans.
Yeah. Which we can talk about after this, but
we'll get to that. They're going to call me racist because they're going to call me racist based off of me saying like cracker earlier, right? They're going to call me racist because I believe that whiteness is intrinsically tied to racism in America. Things like that.
That's a little bit more
based off of the most mundane like things that a basic college sociology 101 class is going to teach everyone in the classroom, right? My fans will call you racist, not specifically. No, here's a better way to put it. They're going to call me racist because some of the things I say can be perceived as directly offensive to a white person if a white person had the same racial sensitivity as a non-white person had. That's usually what it's based on.
Yeah, or didn't understand the framework that, like, when you use the word whiteness or like racism and bigotry. Like, I understand in your framework you differentiate between racism and bigotry, which is partly why. Well, that's why I can have the dialogue, because I don't believe you hate white people. I don't believe you are because you wouldn't be having this conversation with me if you did.
Right.
And so in that sense, yeah, when I hear anti-white racism is not real, I can understand that.
And so therein lies the difference, right? Like one of the critiques I often get when I enter into, exit out of my bubble to engage with white people is that I essentialize whiteness, thus I do what racists do.
Yeah, it's like when you told Not So Erudite on the Bridges podcast, you're like, if you were any more white, I wouldn't like you. Right. It's like, that is it. You understand how white people would perceive that. It's exactly like, hey, FD, if you were a little bit more, like, I can talk to you, FD, but if you're a little bit more black, I don't know if we can have this conversation. Yeah.
Right. And so, I can, because there's no consequences, right? I can play in that edgy framework, and there's really no consequences for it from my particular standpoint. So the more Christian nationalists, white grievance, black fatigue types, that's really what they're calling me racist for, is for kind of playing into the black privilege of being edgy around race and not losing a sponsorship, a support for it. When my audience calls you racist, though, it's not because of insert edgy black joke, right? It's not even really because of like the Daniel Penny verdict conversation. It's because what they recognize is that your general standpoint, even if you don't have an intrinsic hatred or negative opinion toward black people, the space in which your politics occupy end up feeding into a greater momentum for racist ideology and policy. And that's like whatever Christian nationalism is, because I don't know enough about it to call myself an expert or even knowledgeable. But I know that they will give lip service. Fuentes will give lip service and say, I don't hate Black people, I don't hate Jews, et cetera, et cetera. I just think only white people should have American citizenship, and yada 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 yada. And that pulls from a history of doublespeak around race under white supremacy. Which Black people do as well. But we've never done it with institutional power. Thus, it's basically just, again, jokes. It's memes. It's memes.
Okay. So,
you know what I'm saying?
But this is my point about.
And we've never done it like at the level of saturation. Like Umar is a meme among Black people.
I know. I love Umar.
Everybody loves Umar because he's funny. He's fucked up.
Did I stutter?
Right.
Wow, hold on. What's the line he always repeats? I always see.
He repeats all his lines.
Yeah.
But like Umar is a meme and Donald Trump is the president. You know what I'm saying? Like Elon Musk was one of the most powerful people in our government up until a month ago. But he's African, so he's an apartheid South African. He's Dutch. Sure, he's different. You kind of get the.
I get this. Yeah, I understand this. Now this is how I see things. Again, meme adoption curve. I'm looking at things of, okay, things are happening right now that are in the meme phase. Christian nationalism is also a meme. Like there's the political power of people who self-identify as Christian nationalist is not non-existent, but very small right now. Okay. Now you could say that its ideas run through MAGA. It's like, sure. But my point is, looking down the line, if the argument is, well, anti-white racism is, I don't know, more understandable or not as bad as anti-Black racism or whatever, if that continues to be justified, and things like the fucking heroin crisis and opioid crisis continues to like kill poor white people and all that shit, you are going to create the conditions where it's like, okay, at a certain point now, and there are, again, I'm wealthy white, right? I have white privilege in the sense of class privilege. There are many poor whites in this country. And like, if we had an economic crisis that like wiped out even more people at the bottom, then we're talking crazy shit. Like we're at a point where COVID killed way more white people than anyone else. Sure. But killed like people of color, but like not as much as it should have because of the right-wing inclination against vaccines and masking, et cetera. Maybe I'm pretty sure the by and large the Black community is not the most in favor of government-sponsored medical interventions that have not been tried out. I think you'd be surprised. I think you'd be surprised how, again, that is the meme of Hoteps and Umar versus. Okay, but even that. But go ahead. But even that is like robbing the Umars of their talking about. It's like the Tuskegee experiments were real. And it's like there's crazy shit. But it's just like I'm sorry, go ahead. But I am worried. I genuinely believe the white identitarianism is growing. And you say, well, the problem with, or the reason that I don't take anti-white racism to be on the same level as anti-Black racism is because right now it's just a meme. It has institutional power. It's like, but the memes precede institutional power. And it's just like, if it got to and first off, this just goes to show you how bad of a white identitarian I am. Like, I would dispute that there is no institutional power. It's like all the DEI programs and the corporations that brag about paying non-whites more than whites in order to boost their numbers. That's the definition of systemic racism. It's also bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's not bullshit. Microsoft bragged about this in their quarterly reports. I was part of a corporation. That's not DEI though. You see what I'm saying? That is okay. Okay, maybe not by your definition, but that is what they call DEI: diversity, equity, inclusion. Quotas are illegal, FD, but goals are not. You can say, I want a goal of hiring 50% non-white. And you can pay people more to do that. I was part of companies. I will not say the name because I was offered to be involved in some lawsuits. So I'm like, I got bigger fish to fry. it's like, that's systemic racism against white people. It just is, by definition.
So in the tech space, let me get this. Let me make sure I'm understanding this. You're saying, and this is my first time.
Not just in the tech space. This is like corporate America.
You're telling me there are corporate American institutions, businesses that paid their black or their non-white. They're non-white men, or they're non-white.
Certainly they're non-whites. I don't know if, for example, in the case of Microsoft, they differentiated it by male, and they probably did, but they said they pay non-whites 7% more than their white employees if you average their salary out, and then bragged about that as if that's a good thing.
So I'd have to investigate.
That's fine. I've been known to spread misinformation, so don't take what I have to say.
So I would
necessarily, but I am correct.
We have to agree that those are probably extremely rare, considering the grand scope of corporate America. You think that the non-white employees, on average, are getting paid than their white counterparts? Okay. Because we haven't even got one thing you haven't said is for the same job, which I really want to know the details on. But go ahead.
This is indisputable.
This is indisputable.
Now, this is indisputable given what I've seen. Now, again, take it for what it's with a grain of salt.
This is the type of stuff that we need.
But it is indisputable that if you are entering the job market now, and corporate America doesn't mean like rich people. Like there are many middle class jobs in corporate America. Like I believe 60% of jobs are from corporations, not small businesses. So like most jobs, okay. If you are entering the job market, it is absolutely the case that assuming two people with same educational background, same abilities, it is overwhelmingly to your advantage to be a minority of any kind, to be a woman, to be gay, to be black, or whatever. The most disadvantaged thing you can be in the age of DEI is straight white male. Now that is indisputable. Mm-hmm. What I would entertain as a real argument is we need to do that to push back against the old boys club type mentality. And I will tell you, again, also having been in these corporations, the old boys club is real. I won't repeat stories I've heard, but I know people who have been in upper boardrooms who've talked about crazy shit. And you could make the case, okay, maybe we needed some level of kind of forced course correction, but now we're at a point where that's gone. And it's a generational thing.
So here's
for the boomers, maybe for the Gen Z and the millennials. This is why the Gen Zs, the kids are so fucking racist. It's like, bro, I'm not in that old boys room. I don't have a job. I don't have a house. I don't have a chance of raising a family. You're holding me accountable for the sins of these old rich white men who are not my allies by any stretch of the imagination. And the whole system's fucked. On top of all the bullshit of just DEI is just dumb as fuck in general.
So there's a couple things.
Yeah,
like those Gen Z.
I talked for a lot. So
consciousness is fucked on a lot of levels. Partially because of what you're speaking to. Partially because of like the failure of DEI, identity politics stuff. So I want to challenge the claim of the most disadvantaged thing you can be is a straight white male. Right. So in
getting a job, coming out of college, like your standard college degree corporate job.
If you are holding harmless the structure of the job market and considering, from an individual level, right? As just another white guy with a degree from such and such state university. White's University, which is 85% of them, right? Which is kind of a point I'm about to get at. If you're just another 22-year-old white guy from White's University in Kentucky, and you're applying for a job and you're going up against Mary Sue, who is a Filipino child of an immigrant, who is literally one of one. Right?
Sure.
Who's literally one of one, like in that application pool, literally one of one.
One of one on one narrow view of identity.
Right. But
that white person is one of. I'm one of. Listen, there's no one like PF Young.
Saying. From your standpoint, you're also one of one, right? So I get the logic that her one of one under the circumstances from this specific what's the word? Scenario. I get the logic that says that you're at a disadvantage. The challenge is, one, the reality of the results do not speak to that. Every other company in the world, so many of these companies are constantly complaining that they cannot find qualified candidates. So like you can't be both disadvantaged, but also they cannot find they can't find enough.
Yes,
people that are clearly advantaged over you.
Okay. Right? Can I just give you the specific, because it's dead relevant?
Okay.
I was part of the DEI program design team for the corporation I worked at. They talked about all the time.
Tells you how fucked DEI is.
Yeah. Right. Oh, don't get me started.
But go ahead.
They said we need to increase our non-black or non-white portion of employees. Right.
Right.
Like explicitly, they showed a chart of the county we were incorporated in, and then the racial demographic, and said we need to make these two numbers match. That was the extent of the thought that was put into it, which is ridiculous because we were a national corporation. So the county we happen to be incorporated in, whatever. The point was, they're like, okay, how do we do this? Well, we should change our applications to make it gender neutral or whatever, and race, so there are no trigger words in it. Okay, fine. If we're going to hire a black person, we should have a person of color interview them. That's what they said. These are white DEI. Okay, now I brought up, hey, lady, so you're saying if we're going to interview a black person, we need a non-black person to interview them. Doesn't matter if they're black, just as long as they're not white. And I brought up, hey, you might very clearly run into the issue of tokenizing. Hey, we're interviewing a black candidate. Here's our one black manager coming over to interview you. It's ridiculous. But that's just one specific thing, which, by the way, that ended up, I found out months later, that exact situation happened where a black manager got pissed off because he was brought in to interview, and it's like, what? I'm just a fucking token. So once again, PF Young's vibes-based analysis predicted it 6 months in ahead. But hold on.
I mean, that's true.
Here's the real issue, though. I brought this up, and no one gave a shit because they don't actually care about making a difference. Hey, guys. Is the issue that our hiring practices are racist? I don't believe so. It's just nonsense. I was on a majority-minority team every time I was in that corporation. Mm-hmm. The issue is not we can't find black candidates because we're so racist we turn them off. The issue is that because of systemic racism, which is real, the pool of qualified black candidates to begin with is disproportionately small for the population size that we're trying to go after. So how about, instead of doing all these stupid fucking DEI programs where we pay a consultant $50,000 to give a lecture on how to be less racist, let's take every dollar of that and give it to community activists who, for example, train underprivileged youth on how to use Microsoft Excel, which is like the most basic corporate tool that every corporation could use. And guess what? Nobody gave a fuck, because it wasn't about actually solving the problem. It was about looking like they care. And all the DEI shit in corporations is 100% that. And until I hear, this is what, hold on. We agree. And so until I hear a justification from some DEI consultant for why we should give them $150,000 a year instead of $150,000 to community activists already doing shit to address the fundamental underlying problems, the entire thing is fucking bullshit. And all of the justifications around it, systemic racism, blah, 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 it's like, in corporations, yeah.
So I have, without giving.
So stop defending DEI. DEI is not the N word. DEI is bullshit.
I've never been a DEI fan for that very reason, because I've seen it like I want to.
Yeah, but your philosophical worldview created it. Kimberly Crenshaw created it. Yeah, she says explicitly.
Critical race theory created the framework for what DEI and like inclusion and stuff.
Sure, liberals hijacked it.
There you go.
Yeah, but the underlying creation is entirely a product of postmodernism.
Is valid though. The underlying logic is valid. The problem with all of the critical theory stuff is the liberal hijacking. You should read Elite Capture. It's a very short, very straight to the point, written by.
You should watch Joshua Citarella. Do you know who Joshua Citarella is?
No, I'm scared.
He is no. He's great. He's the future Joe Rogan of the left. He's a Marxist. He's a classic Marxist.
Okay.
He's interviewed several professors who talk
Chibber?
about this. Yes, Vivek Chibber.
Yeah.
Is he right? Do you like Vivek?
Yes. Overall, I like Vivek.
Okay.
I think Vivek popping off recently is really valuable.
Yes.
Because leftists and liberals are at a crossroads where they're either going to get on board or they're going to destroy us or themselves.
Right. And I think it's Vivek or Vivek. Vivek would say explicitly that the framework that Kimberly Crenshaw created, whatever, critical race theory, postmodern, contemporary fusion of politics, whatever she said in that paper, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, by the way, but that's a separate issue. But that framework is the one that is like justifying giving money to the DEI consultants, because the goal is to fight power and racism wherever it manifests, not at the root of the issue, which is class and systemic racism and education. It's just as valid to fight power and systemic racism within the confines of a corporation.
And so
like, Vivek would make that specific.
I think he would, and I would agree with him overall. And this is kind of the place where we get into a dangerous. The danger of this whole conversation is where the margin stops in these critiques. Because my problem with Vivek is that he is correct in his analysis of how DEI sucks and identity politics is co-opted and trash. But you still have to circle back to the fact that these things were created to address specific issues that are completely valid. Sure. And in any other situation, when we come up with a solution for a problem that does not work, we don't like leave the problem intact based on the inefficiency of the tool that we presented to it. And my criticism of Vivek, my criticism of even the anti-white race, because like you're right about how anti-white racism and white identitary politics is on the rise, but indulging the myth of anti-white, not the myth, indulging the what I want to call it, indulging the like
narrative. A narrative can be true or false.
Yeah. So indulging the narrative of anti-white racism, thank you, only gives more, it only takes away energy from the realities of how you address racism and gives energy to the Christian nationalist people. You know what I'm saying? So like you have to.
Fair enough. I would say the exact opposite. And this is it's not a matter of debate at this point. It's just like, no. My perception is that's how you rob them of their valid talking points.
And so I don't think you do, because the talking point, this is what it is. That's not a talking point. That's a smokescreen. You see what I'm saying? And like, that is kind of why I can't roll with it. When I hear the whole concept of Christian nationalism is the same, it's a repackaged, the whole concept of Christian nationalism is repackaging of the same white Judeo-Christian ideology and philosophies that created segregation and Jim Crow and slavery to begin with. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a smokescreen where we're just trying to protect the virtue of white women, right? Like literally, damn near 90% of all race riots in America's history start with the lie that a white woman was assaulted by a black man. Like, go look that up. It's literally their greatest hit. And and by the time you've allowed that to gestate, any amount of violence that happens after that is justified. And you don't then like fix that problem by saying, okay, we need to make sure that black men know not to touch or look at white women the wrong way. Because that was already well entrenched among black men at that time. It did not stop the problem from happening, because the ultimate goal was not to protect white women. We know from American history and world history, white women, not necessarily the most protected class, depending on where you're coming from, right? At least within y'all spaces. So we can't then give power to that narrative, because if we give power to that narrative, we might avoid a fraction of these incidents. They might have to make up a new lie, but the behavior that's the problem is still going to persist. And that's kind of my struggle with like, and so what I'm really interested in is unearthing within those, let's say your friend who probably would not consider themselves to be racially biased, unearthing what allows that to be salient. Because there's a lot of white people that if you make, in fact, the majority of white people, I would argue, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the majority of white people, if you make a white joke around them, do not care. I hate when white people make white jokes. It is so cringe to me.
It's all, joke specifically is all intent. Hold on real quick, because just to address that point, because this is, I'll wrap up my analysis of the disagreement here, which is, this is how I would phrase it. I would say the same thing to people who have your perspective as I would say to like the Charlie Kirks. Charlie Kirk loves to say, you live in America, right? It's one of the best countries. You should be patriotic. I'm like, Charlie, obviously to some degree, I agree with you. And like some of the stats bear it out. The best place on average to be black is actually America. You know, it's fine any other country. But yeah. Right, sure. But that's still a fact. There's plenty of, you know, well-off black people, so on and so forth. But it's like, Charlie, put yourself in the shoes of an inner city black kid, right? Who, you know, be patriotic. It's like every politician that has ever, you know, managed my city has neglected the fuck out of me. And now I'm being told to be patriotic. When I see the American flag, I say, fuck that, because that flag just, from my experience, represents bullshit. It's like, okay, well, Charlie, I don't want to acknowledge that narrative because it feeds in the narrative that America's bad. We need to foster patriotism. I agree that in order to have a healthy society, you do need to have a generally positive attitude towards your country. I would say the way to foster that attitude is by acknowledging those pains and addressing them versus I don't want to feed into that anti-American talking points, because a lot of that is mixed up with America is just inherently racist to the core, needs to be burned down, all that different shit. It's like, I just think the best way to destroy the ideological rot on the other side of you, whoever you are, is to, you know, rob the nutrients that rot is feeding on. And like, there's a lot of fucking systemic racism in black communities. Like, right. That is systemic. Like, yeah, the one we talked about was property taxes funding schools. Fucked. Yeah. Literally the accumulation of wealth. Education should be the great equalizer. It's not.
But the thing that I struggle with and I'm curious about is, what are those pains though? From a white standpoint, like you mentioned earlier, right?
Being told,
and see,
there's too many fucking white people.
I'm struggling with that because, like,
really,
my son just got racially profiled at his soccer tryouts, and so like,
and it sucks.
It sucks, but the
do you believe? See, this is the thing. This is why you hold it. You cause a great
hold it.
You cause a great deal of confusion in me, because it's like, either the reason that I'm able to engage with you is because I assume that you are like me in some fundamental way in terms of how we perceive the world and how we perceive people and all that. Obviously, there's differences. Of course, there's differences between everybody, and in some fundamental ways, and you can go down any dimension of like, what was your childhood trauma like? What was your relationship with your parent? Whatever. There's all kinds of million different ways that affect how people are. But it's like, I don't believe that you do not understand. Like, if you heard someone say, a white kid say, there's too many black people in Chicago. Like, they're fucking all over the place. They're doing all this shit. Mm-hmm. You know, they're committing all this crime. I got black. It doesn't matter. I understand that you have the framework that you do, that is in the context of this, you know, oppressive system and all that. It's like, people who, you don't need that framework to still feel like, man, when someone says there's too many white people and that white people are responsible for all the ills of the world, and that it's, you know, it's like, I've seen tweets that are like, you colonized our nation, now we're going to get yours, bitch. It's like, damn, guess what? I know it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And it is to the degree that us whites are not going to put up with it. It's like,
and that's kind of, so that, and therein lies the real struggle here.
But real quick, just to that point, I believe that sentiment. If you're told all the time, like, yo, white people legitimately colonize the shit out of all your countries, and it's really their responsibility for all these fucking problems, I genuinely believe they're like, no, I want less white people here. I want them gone. I want them out. Shut the fuck up. Oh, it's like,
I believe
coexistence in that sense for those. Yeah, that can't work any more than the KKK and black people, whatever. It's just like, it's fucking ridiculous.
The framework, purpose, and like ultimate goal of it is like, you have to ground this in historical like reality and analysis. You said something earlier that I wanted to touch on. I had to write a note because I forgot it earlier. It was about the whole, like, what are the consequences of this? And like, historically, what are the consequences? Because that's where you not just lose me.
I hate the word historically, by the way, just so you know. Anytime it says historically, I'm like, no, let's look at the now, okay? Let's look at the now.
The now is steeped in the history. It's steeped
I'm aware.
Everything that happened up until this point.
True.
So like right now, so recently, Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, a couple years ago, he expelled the French, and he's become kind of a hero in Africa for this. Burkina Faso and a lot of these states, they control like, I think like 80% of the world's gold or something, you know, serious like that. And for the last umpteen hundred years, they've been either colonized or neo-colonized by France, right? He kicks them all out and people cry reverse racism. It's like, it's not reverse racism. You all have broken into our house a long time ago and refused to leave.
Sure.
Right. And so like that's the difference. You mentioned earlier, like so the opioid. So I used to work in behavioral health, and one of the initiatives I had
in schools, right?
Not just in school, no, in schools, yes, but also like I worked for a behavioral health organization in Georgia, and we did rural behavioral health work specifically around drug, substance abuse. So we were going to Bump a Dump, Georgia, to talk to local organizers and local like healthcare workers about the opioid crisis, and meth was making a return at the time, and like the lack of like high-speed internet. Like Georgia still doesn't have high-speed internet throughout the state, which is just fucking ridiculous. So many different things that are affecting those predominantly white people, predominantly poor white people in Bump a Dump, Georgia. And while I was there, I felt intensely unsafe and told them, I will do this work from the office. If you want people to go out into the field, you will not be choosing me again. Right?
Fine. Yeah, that's totally, I don't.
And so therein lies the thing I'm trying to get at is that anti-white racism is not causing rural people in Georgia to suffer from these ailments. Structural inequality is. And if anything,
correct, on the dimension of class
and structural equality in class, all these things, right, are doing that. And if anything, it's white supremacy that allows this particular group to, or I should say, white supremacy is a tool utilized by the actual administrators of power in Georgia to maintain that inequality, because those people still voted for Trump. Still voted for, in this case, like Stacey Abrams, who ran partially on giving high-speed internet to Georgia, voted against her twice. You know what I'm saying? Because she was a large black woman. Brian Kemp ran on literally one of his.
Oh my God. It can't be the only reason.
It's literally like
60% of white people voted for John James in Michigan, who was a black guy. It's like, it's about the politics.
John James.
I just remember this example because when people bring this, the only reason people vote, and I'm guessing the only reason people didn't vote for Kamala is because.
Oh, that was a big reason. But that's also just like people didn't vote. I made 2 videos about it.
Yeah, right.
But like the ideology behind values in these spaces are intrinsically tied to the same ideology that activates with the anti-white racism talking point. And there's something more to understand and learn about what activates that instinct that I don't know yet. And I probably should know, at least according to people that maybe know better. But I don't trust, or it's not that I don't trust the genuine white identity frameworks that you get from Eduardo Bonilla Silva and the critical theorists. It's that they don't have enough utility. or at least they don't have enough utility based on the state of knowledge right now. And I don't think we get to that level of utility if we both can agree that we want to reduce right identitarianism. We want to reduce white supremacist activity. We want to reduce the utility of, we want to reduce class inequality.
Yeah,
right?
Wealth inequality. Yeah,
wealth inequality. If we can agree on all those things, I then ask you, where does validating anti-white racism as a narrative fit into those things? Because I would argue that what it does, so does it rob them of their talking point? Possibly, but the way racism works, they just make up a new one. You know,
sure. But to this point exactly, and maybe we can, because we'll wrap up here in like 15, 20 minutes. How does it
contribute to that?
You know, for example, this is my enlightened centrist advice to the left, right, which is the most valuable advice. Assuming we live in a democracy, which we still do by all appearances, although it's questionable.
It's questionable, we will continue.
Well, it's probably questionable for different reasons, but either way, it's questionable potentially. But point is, you need a majority of people to be on your side for certain things. Like, there's just such practical things of like, I don't know, like, I've become more sympathetic to universal healthcare. I'm not sold on it. I'm more sympathetic to it. I'm sympathetic to, we certainly should be taxing capital gains at a higher rate. We should not be taxing labor more so than capital gains. And then there's entire ways to leverage risk where you have a bunch of assets. You have like a bunch, like $10 million. You don't live off the interest. You take debt against it, and then you don't pay taxes on your debt. There's all kinds of fucking bullshit financial maneuvering and shit. That's ridiculous. I'm against that. There are so many people on the populist right who would agree with that. And if in some sense, to create the coalition that is necessary to get the majority to pass these universally important things, universally recognized as important things, then it's worth it. It's like I have no problem and would love to work with someone who literally says like, I don't fuck with white people, fuck whiteys, fuck the crack, all that shit. Like, but are you for ranked choice voting? Are you for taxing speculation or whatever?
Capital gains.
Yeah. Are you for, because if you are, maybe we should canvass in different groups, but we'll still canvass at the same event, or you know what I mean, like that type of shit.
So,
and you're applying that to the right wing populace too. Now, of course, it's like, well, but is there a greater cost for a black person to be working with someone who's literally the member of the KKK? Yes, I'm not saying we should work with literal members of the KKK. I think you, Christian nationalist. It's to the point about terms not meaning what they mean. It mean like there's the Nick Fuentes racist version of Christian nationalism. There is, in theory, a more moderate form, or at least one that, again, has points that I agree with, just like I agree with Karl Marx on a lot of shit, and I agree with...
We'll save that, because I want to...
Yeah, go ahead. Well, but that's the point of why am I tempted to say that? What is the point of robbing them of their valid talking points? In order to create the coalition building necessary to address the much deeper things that we agree on, which is wealth inequality. Anti-white racism, anti-black racism, one is bad, one is worse, whatever. Everyone agrees wealth inequality is a serious fucking, not everyone, but intelligent people agree that wealth inequality is a serious problem. So let's temporarily suspend the disagreement here to build the coalition to advance these interests. The
challenge there, and then maybe this will lend itself to you explaining the valid elements of Christian nationalism to me, is that historically speaking, those moments of in critical theory, they call them interest convergence, right? That comes out of critical race theory. There are moments historically where the needs and desires of Black people for liberation and freedom in America happen to line up with the powers that be, right? Often it's because Black people are showing an inclination towards radical action, right? One of my favorite stories to talk about is the I Have a Dream speech, and how that speech was never supposed to happen. And it only happened because that march, which was not organized by MLK, was being spoken about as being much bigger and much more rowdy. And MLK was working already with JFK. JFK?
I think Lyndon Johnson.
It might be Lyndon Johnson at the time. Yeah. I think he had started work with JFK, I think, before. I may be fucking up this history. I apologize.
And then Israel took out him. No, I'm just kidding. I don't believe that, for the record. I don't believe Israel took him out.
We'll come back to that. I don't. This is safer for you than me.
That's fine.
But the point I'm trying to get at is that it was understood in the development of that march that Black folks were not coming to be peaceful, like to be for civil. They were not coming with civil disobedience. They were coming with disruption in mind. The speech from Malcolm X about it was that, like, they were planning on shutting down businesses, clogging up streets, laying down on airplane runways until something happened. And so Lyndon B. Johnson or somebody literally called Martin Luther King and had him essentially clout his way into being a part of the march with promises of finally getting a bill through and tamping down the more radical, disruptive energy that the march is coming from. So interest convergence. We get this great speech, and the Civil Rights Bill is signed a year later. I don't know. I don't remember the dates, but signed soon after. And what people don't talk about is that in the aftermath of that speech, whenever you talk about Martin Luther King, whenever most liberals and moderates and definitely conservatives talk about Martin Luther King, it's that speech, and like literally they imagine he was shot the next day.
Right.
And what really happened is that for the next 3 or 4 years, King was like, "This is some bullshit."
Yeah, he went left economically.
This is some bullshit.
Yeah.
This is a bad deal. Y'all sucker me into this, and y'all reneged on the value of this almost immediately.
And so the FBI killed him.
Right? And so while the logic you're presenting on face value makes sense, from the standpoint of Black folks, history tells me that if I be like, you know what, anti-racism is bad. Can we stop saying cracker y'all so they'll feel better, and then we can get ranked choice voting. Once that happens, ranked choice voting will fuck around and be 4 white nationalists, 3 Christian nationalists, 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and Bernie Sanders' corpse. You know what I'm saying? And so, like,
that's fair. Look, I'm not even saying that you should. By the way, historically, just to point out, they did kill Martin Luther King as he moved economically left because wealth inequality is a real problem. He got to the root of the issue. Malcolm X they killed or they allowed him to get killed because it was the NOI that killed him.
They low-key set the NOI up.
They knew they had all the tapes. Yeah. Okay, yeah, but point is, they certainly wanted Malcolm X. The FBI wanted Malcolm to die, and he died. And he was moving in the direction of, let's build a more colorblind. I don't want to say colorblind because it clearly wasn't, but certainly more multiracial coalition. Same with Fred Hampton. The Rainbow Coalition was literally Fred Hampton's best example. Yeah. So that's more my point is, yes, you're correct historically that, like, aligning with like the civil rights thing.
What we need to do is investigate what the meetings between the Panthers, the Young Lords, what was the white group? Or was the white group the Young Lords?
I just know it was a Rainbow Coalition as a group.
It was specifically 3 main groups though. It was a Latino group and a white group. And one of them was named the Young Lords. But because like, and this may be a flaw in my perception. I hear the Rainbow Coalition and I admire its intention. And the Fred Hampton in me is the reason why I'm here, right? Because I feel like there's value and utility in building coalition with generally like-minded white people, but at least white people amenable to cause. right?
Like-minded white people for you, those are boring. Boring, lame. They're lame.
I've had those conversations before. I miss these
far more
challenging, scary moments.
Yeah, hardcore right wingers such as myself are far more interesting.
But I do wonder what that conversation was, because he built coalition with not just white people; those were poor white people. Those are PWCs.
Correct.
But there's no documentation. Look, there's no documentation that I'm aware of. I need to do more study. There may be something I get into at a certain point. Is what did that conversation look like? Because it's not like racism is any worse today than it was in 1960 in the early 60s, right? Like
Robin DiAngelo would say it's worse. A white DEI consultant, by the way. But
Robin DiAngelo,
no real person would not say that.
True. But at least the overt stuff. So how did that conversation go? Was there, I do know there were moments where there's a story about like there being a conversation about, hey, like essentially some microaggression shit, but they solved it they solved it effectively. But there's also, ever since Hampton, there's been constant bickering between like black anarchists, black leftists, and white leftists. There's a reason why so much of my career is built upon helping to build a black online leftist content space, because there was no representation. But I don't know. Explain to me why I should remain friends with you after this Christian nationalist shit.
What do you think? Wait, hold on. What specifically are you?
So I've had multiple people, some white, no, actually all white.
You should be suspicious.
I mean, I'm already suspicious. I'm always suspicious of.
Sounds like feds are getting to you.
People with a lot of tweets that critique me, with no like responses to their tweets. Like you can always see I can always see people how many times they've commented on my content, and then when I find myself being talked about on Twitter and I see you have like 100,000 tweets and I look through your tweets and like there's like zero interaction, but it's you reposting.
Yeah, you're probably a bot at that point.
Yeah. Bot or a human bot, right?
Yeah.
But that is a critique. I'm not above critique, right? And so I do want to better understand this. If this has to become a private email.
Well, what are you referring? What do you? Well, you said people came up to you, or?
Well, I've had multiple people say, this guy is sympathetic to Christian nationalism, which you just basically admitted. So I need you to explain yourself.
Sure. To the same sense, I'm sympathetic to like communism or the most. Look,
what are those things in it though? Like what is?
Yeah.
Like,
okay. So Christian. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a philosophical conversation that.
Right. Philosophically speaking.
The broadest underlying ethos I agree with is that the United States or Western civilization or whatever you want to call it is fundamentally rooted in what are Christian values. Mm-hmm. The principle that, whether or not it was acted out at the time, the one that I think you and I agree with, which is that in some sense, all people are created equal before. Are you Christian? You're not Christian, are you?
No. I grew up Muslim, and I'm best described as being agnostic.
Okay. So, but you're not like you're not a hardcore atheist. Or anything.
I'm not a hardcore atheist. No, I think hardcore atheism is kind of stupid.
I agree. It's cringe. The reason it's cringe is because like the idea that all men are created equal, and the genuine commitment to that, which I would say historically we failed, to live up to quite a bit, but like. You like I treat you as someone of having the same intrinsic value as me or anyone else or whatnot. It's like that's a Christian presupposition, mm-hmm. which is like different from, for example, Hinduism, which has a caste system, which is explicitly like some people are better than others. Now, I've been told that the extent of the caste system was amplified by the colonial British, which I don't doubt for a moment, given what I know of what the colonial British did in like the Middle East, for example.
Right.
But it's the same. It's sort of like the critical race theory thing. It's like the framework is still there. It's within Hinduism that there's a caste system. Mm. Okay, so I would say that like the general egalitarian ethos and the idea of the genuine exchange of truth. This is a very complex. I'm not saying this to convince anyone. I'm just saying this to explicate my view. It's like that is rooted in Christianity. The idea that Jesus is associated with the logos, which is like the root of logic, like word communication, which I would say what you and I are doing is genuinely exchanging ideas to the best of our ability in the most honest way we can.
Right.
That ethos is rooted in a Christian framework. Now, you could very easily point out, here's all the shit ways in which Christianity fucked things up, justified slavery, all these different things. But it's like, it's sort of I make this analogy from an evolutionary point of view. It's like human beings and chimpanzees came from the same ancestor, whatever, 6-7 million years, or I don't know.
Great ape.
Yeah, whatever our common ancestor is. So you could say, so if Christianity is down here as our last common ancestor, it's accurate to say humans came from that, right? And pointing out, well, chimpanzees also came from that, doesn't change the fact that, yes, a different thing came from that common ancestor, but so did humans. And I would say, like, the positive elements of Western civilization, the commitment to egalitarianism, equality under the law, stuff like that, you know, the free exchange of ideas, that does emerge historically. Here I am talking about historically.
And from important.
Yeah, from the Christian Enlightenment perspective. There was just a professor on, Joshua Citarella, again, who I think you would actually like a lot. Joshua Citarella, on his podcast, a professor made the same point. So going back to can I be sympathetic to different ideas and different ideologies? It's like, yes, absolutely. Even the most extreme, like, anti-white racism. It's like Malcolm X. Always comes back to Malcolm X. It's like, could I sympathize with Malcolm X after his family was literally fucking killed? His dad was killed by the KKK. The state came in and tried to turn them all against each other. Witnessed all kinds of sick, twisted degeneracy in rich white communities, which, by the way, continues to this day. It's like, of course I'm sympathetic to that. And so, you know, I'm willing to have conversations with Christian nationalists to the degree that they're like, we're going to stone gay people. Like, fuck you. I'll never go along with that bullshit like that. Criminalizing sodomy. It's like, that's insane.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is that
blasphemy, censoring free speech. It's like, I'm for free speech, you know, like I'm committed to that. And the Christian nationalists are for blasphemy laws. Fuck that. If you're going to say I can't criticize Jesus because he's an alcoholic virgin or whatever, it's like, fuck that. That's ridiculous.
So
whoever told you I'm sympathetic to Christian nationalism is a fucking hater.
So I think,
but they're correct, but they also are a hater.
That happened for one specific reason, which is, you know, as I've emerged as I'm really out of my depth. And that's something I'm coming to terms with recently, like hating a million, and being like amenable, familiar, inspired by Black radical politics comes with the responsibility to kind of be an avatar, especially at the level of visibility I have. And I'm not a good enough avatar. I'm just not. And so there are some people, especially highly online people, who their only real interest in me is for me to be an avatar or be an avatar for what's wrong. Thus, they can make their critique tweets and shit, right? So like I was not really like bothered by the actual criticism, but I knew I needed to address it because the genuine critique of what you just presented is that from a pragmatic sense, and I think we're both pragmatists, from a pragmatic sense, the only good thing that can come out of you being as gracious to Christian nationalism as you are is that maybe some Christian nationalists will pop up in your chats and be like, oh, I guess maybe we shouldn't stone gay people. You know what I'm saying? And there's a value to that.
Right, which, because to your point, they don't have institutional power now, the stoning gay people type, but like,
right. But they're much closer than me and Umar. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, fine. But meme adoption curve, like it's a meme now, but like power follows that eventually.
But this does give validity to the common critique of centrists, which is like for you, right? And for like, you know, there's always weird, I don't know, the Jesse Lee Petersons of the world, right? Which I still am not sure if he's real. You know, he may have been the first AI.
I think he's the only channel I watch every video that he drops.
Wow. Okay. But like there's like, or Candace Owens to an extent, which I don't think Candace Owens.
Candace is a Christian nationalist for sure.
Right. She's a Christian nationalist, right?
Candace and Tucker Carlson.
I don't think she's a true believer though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, she seems like a grifter.
Yeah. I think, which one is Tucker Carlson?
White guy. He does the fake laugh.
Bow tie for a while.
Yes, bow tie.
Okay, yeah. So Carlson's a true believer.
Yeah.
I don't think Fuentes is a true believer.
Yeah, I don't know what his,
But I would say that most of the true believers, generally speaking, are bad. They may have an underlying so let's flip it around. Let me give a bone to some folks in the comment section.
Please.
I get a lot of woke Dr. Umar accusations, right?
From them, or that you're that?
I get from people who don't know and don't like Dr. Umar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They say you're the same thing.
Yeah, my critics from the right, I should say I'm a woke Dr. Umar, because Dr. Umar's philosophy is much more right wing. It's built out of Garveyism, which is kind of the origin point for a lot of Malcolm X's early beliefs. And although Garvey has a lot of great things about him as it pertains to Black identity, much of his ideology was right wing.
Pan-Africanism was Marcus Garvey, right?
Pan-Africanism, yes, and that's kind of like I've made a video.
All right.
It's complicated though. Which,
by the way, when you make your Fred Hampton video on the Rainbow Coalition and you create a mimetic seismic shock that ripples through the left, uniting the class left, and therefore indirectly allows legislation to be passed, not validating, furthers the fight against wealth inequality in a material way, advancing the material interests of the proletariat, that will be a great day, FD, but that's a separate issue.
Oh God! Now I can't do it.
All right, we'll cut that out.
Just so I don't give you credit. No, I'm just joking. But no. So I get a lot of woke Dr. Umar accusations, right?
Yep.
And that's because me and Dr. Umar we're both cut from similar cloths. In terms of there's Pan-Africanism isn't explicitly leftist ideology, but Pan-Africanism, as it's been practiced and as it's been understood in America for the last 50, 60 years, at least my entire lifetime, has not been leftist. It's been kind of like cultural nationalism. They call them pork chop nationalists. There's some weird, the meme of what hoteps are.
Yeah.
Is also directly connected to the legacy of how Pan-Africanism was destroyed. So we would have came up in similar spaces, and we both pull from the good stuff that a Garvey or a Malcolm presented in their ideology and politics and philosophy. And so I will give credit to Garvey, I will give credit to Malcolm, and I will give credit to Umar in as much as he is correct on certain things. One thing Umar and me completely agree on is the education system as how it treats Black boys. But then he goes
over prescribes them with ADD and medication and shit like that, right?
Right. Well, so he said
among many things.
Yes, stuff like yes. But then he goes on to say ADHD just isn't real.
Oh yeah,
and that's caused by gay people and.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember that one out. Yeah.
And so.
Right. Yeah.
And so maybe that's where you are with Christian nationalism,
exactly.
et cetera.
Yeah.
The challenge you're going to have to step up to is how do you better differentiate what you see as valuable Christian values and how that's valuable for building a cohesive nation with a specific manifestation of Christianity that outside of purporting to like Christianity basically is just all awfulness and bullshit.
Yeah. Yes.
As far as I know.
I 100%.
And so that's kind of where, if I were to ever have, and I think what people would challenge me with is you've had a number of Christian nationalists on the show, right? Or talk to them publicly.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I've talked to one who's like a legitimate writer of a book that an intellectual, and then Andrew Wilson, who I've known for a while. We started our YouTube channels around the same time. He's a big Christian nationalist influencer.
Right. So if I were to ever talk to Umar, and it'd
be antagonistic.
It would probably end up. Well, Umar, I don't think Umar would.
Well, yeah. But as someone like an Umar,
but if I were to talk to, because I have to hold other criticisms people had of me, talking to the Black manosphere, right? when I talk to people in the Black manosphere, it's clear disagreement, but it's not antagonistic. And so the challenge you're going to have to hold stepped up to is, how are you illustrating those disagreements even among the audience that you want to, like, the reason why I wasn't antagonistic to Black manosphere people when I was in their presence is because I know at the end of the day, I want those people in the audience to take seriously the standpoint I was presenting in the moment. Yeah. And if I come in there and I fuss and fight, it's really just, it shows that
it shows that you'd be more interested in like the optics of the conversation rather than discussing the ideas in of itself.
Right.
Genuine like exchange of ideas like this, as opposed to debate. Debate is kind of, in my opinion, a form of like I don't want to say cowardice. It's a defense mechanism, right? Because if I can just immediately go in debate mode, I don't have to contend with your ideas like in a genuine sense. I can just constantly use a few rhetorical flourishes to put you at odds. But if it's like, hey, we're actually exchanging ideas, I get your point.
But also I'm curious. I haven't watched any of your Christian nationalist conversations either.
That's fine. I mean,
so it might be
of interest, but I don't know.
But I will point out the danger of the Black manosphere and the danger of the Christian nationalists. Again, two very different possible outcomes. Mean to Black women, stoning gay people.
There are many minority Christian nationalists. My friend, who is not a fan of you, is a Black Catholic Christian nationalist who is very right wing, and
I love him.
Yeah, and so it's not just it's not totally there is white supremacist elements to it, but the one that I'm worried about is not. It's more of the general bigotry, like towards gays and free speech and all that stuff.
Nobody hates me more than Black conservatives. It's really funny.
I don't doubt it. You've said some wild stuff, but
they're the only people I go completely mask off on. Anyone else, I'm willing to hide my power level a little bit.
The haircut, the amount that you go after.
Because it's always funny and it's always fucking true.
And you know what? It's vibes. And I would be lying if I didn't acknowledge the power that those vibes-based arguments have.
All right, I know we got to go. And
we got to wrap up.
Go fight some people about this video, I see. So
beautiful.